to revenge with Lyra.
My brother got a $12,000 villa down payment. I got, maybe try renting? You're not the type who owns things anyway. I smiled and left. I didn't tell them when I bought my first property, or my second, or my fifth. Then Mom Googled my name and suddenly, everything changed. My name is Clara Whitmore, I'm 30, and for most of my life, I was the family's afterthought, the quiet one, the good sport, the at least she tries sibling. My older brother, Ethan, was the golden boy, the kind of son parents brag about to strangers at dinner parties. Every milestone he hit came with applause. Every mistake came with excuses. When he turned 25, Dad handed him the keys to a brand new villa, a small investment to get you started. I was there that night, standing in the corner, holding the cake knife like it might cut through the ache in my chest. A week later, when I brought up wanting to save for my own home, Mom laughed gently and said, "Sweetheart, renting is fine for you. You're not the ownership type." I didn't argue. I just smiled, nodded, and tucked those words somewhere deep, a place I reserved for pain I planned to turn into power. I left that night with $63 in my account and a fire that could light an entire skyline. I worked in real estate administration by day, studied investment analytics by night, and flipped my first small apartment at 26. No gifts, no handouts. Just discipline, spreadsheets, and an instinct for reading value where others saw risk. By 29, I owned 5 properties across the state. Quietly, efficiently, invisibly. I thought I'd made peace with their ignorance until Mom decided to Google me. And that's when the quiet game ended. Because some discoveries burn more than jealousy. They burn the illusion of superiority. Mom's text came late at night, short, clipped, and trembling with confusion disguised as politeness. "Clara, call me when you can. I found something online about you, and I think we need to talk." I almost laughed. Found something online? She made it sound like she'd stumbled upon a scandal, not my success. When I didn't reply, the calls started. Then Ethan chimed in, his name flashing across my screen with that familiar mix of arrogance and entitlement. "Mom's freaking out. She said you're buying properties in your name." "You? Since when?" I stared at his message, the way he wrote you like it was an insult. Then I typed back, "Since you stopped noticing." The next day, I drove to the family home, the same one where I'd been told I was not the type who owns things. The same one where Ethan's framed photo stood in every hallway like a shrine to achievement. Mom greeted me at the door, clutching her phone like evidence. "Clara, what is this?" she demanded, thrusting it at me. My Zillow portfolio glowed on the screen, listings of my 5 properties, my name neatly printed under owner. I took a sip of the coffee she'd made and said calmly, "That's my work. That's my life." Her voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you never asked." Ethan stormed in, face red. "You've been lying to us?" "No," I said, meeting his glare. "You just never believed I could do anything worth knowing." Dad walked in next, holding his newspaper like a shield. "You could have shared your success. Family supports each other." I smiled, the same polite smile they mistook for weakness for years. Family supports each other when it's mutual, Dad. I supported myself when no one else did. Mom's eyes darted between us, her voice trembling. "You own 5 houses?" I nodded. 6, actually. Closed on the newest one last week. The silence that followed wasn't shock. It was something heavier. The sound of a throne collapsing. The silence hung like humidity, heavy, unbreathable. Ethan paced the living room, his shoes echoing against the marble floors Dad loved to brag about. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "You're making this up. There's no way you could afford 6 houses." I tilted my head, almost amused. "You think you're the only one who understands business?" He scoffed. "You work in real estate, Clara. You don't own real estate." I smiled faintly. "That's what you thought." Mom's voice cut through the tension, softer now, half disbelief, half wounded pride. "We would have helped you, sweetheart. You didn't have to do this alone." I met her eyes. I did it alone because I had to. You helped Ethan when he failed 3 startups, remember? You even called it building character. When I failed, you called it wasting time. She flinched like I'd struck her. That's not fair. Neither was growing up invisible, I said quietly. Dad folded his paper with precision. You're being dramatic. We raised you both the same. That laugh that slipped out of me wasn't pretty. It was sharp, honest, uncontainable. No, Dad. You raised Ethan to be a king and me to be his witness. Ethan's face reddened. You're jealous. Jealous. I repeated slowly.
No, Ethan.
I'm exhausted. I just got tired of waiting for permission to be proud of myself. He stepped closer, jaw tight. You think this money makes you better than us? I met his stare, unblinking.
No.
But it definitely made me free from you. Mom's hand trembled as she set down her cup. You've changed. I had to, I said. The version you raised wouldn't have survived out there. Dad's silence said everything. Not regret, not love, just the cold calculation of a man realizing the hierarchy he built was cracking. And for the first time, I didn't feel small in that room. I felt like the earthquake that made them finally look up. That night, I stayed at their house longer than I meant to, mostly out of curiosity, watching how quickly admiration could curdle into resentment. Mom tried to play mediator, her voice sugary but brittle. You have to understand, Clara, this is a shock for all of us. We're proud, really, but you could have told us before making such big decisions. Would it have changed anything? I asked. Would you have believed me if I said I could afford a home before Ethan? She looked down, silent. Ethan poured himself another drink, muttering under his breath. You think you're some big shot now because Google wrote about you? You're nothing without luck. I turned toward him slowly. Luck doesn't show up at 3 a.m. when you're studying interest curves and building spreadsheets in the dark. Luck doesn't answer calls from clients who only believe in you after results. You don't build an empire with luck, Ethan. You build it when nobody cheers for you. His glass hit the counter too hard, splashing bourbon across the marble. You've changed, he said. You used to be humble. No, I corrected softly. I used to be silent. Dad stood then, the room shifting under his authority. That's enough, he said. This competition ends here. We're family. Family? I echoed, my voice quiet but sure. Family didn't believe in me. Family didn't show up when I needed help. You only noticed me when I became useful. His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. That was the moment I knew I'd finally said the thing no one else had dared to. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and my calm. I didn't come here to fight, I said. I came here to prove that the girl you dismiss learned to stand taller than your expectations. Mom whispered after me, Clara, please don't leave like this. I paused at the door and turned back. Don't worry, Mom. I'm not leaving with anger. I'm leaving with proof. Outside, the night air was cold, but it tasted like justice. And somewhere behind me, I could hear the sound of denial finally cracking. By the next morning, my phone was a battlefield. Missed calls from Mom. 2 angry voicemails from Ethan. 1 text from Dad that simply said, You embarrassed your brother. He's family, Clara. Don't forget where you came from. I stared at it for a while before replying. Oh, I haven't forgotten. I just stopped living there. Then I silenced my phone and drove back to the city. My penthouse wasn't a showpiece. It was peace itself. Tall windows, quiet air, and the smell of coffee I made for myself, not for approval. The skyline shimmered like a reminder of how far I'd climbed on the ladder no one offered me. I sat on my balcony, laptop open, checking in on my newest purchase, an ocean view duplex in Miami. The deal had just closed. Property number 7. That's when an email notification flashed across the screen. Subject: You should be ashamed of yourself. It was from Ethan. I clicked it. You've always been jealous. You want to humiliate me because you couldn't handle being second best. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. You broke this family for money. I exhaled slowly, not angry, just tired. Then I wrote back 1 line.
No, Ethan.
I broke the illusion that money and love were the same thing in this family. And then I hit block. That night, I got another surprise, a news alert from a local magazine. Rising real estate investor, Clara Whitmore, expands housing grants for single mothers. The article featured my photo, standing in front of one of my buildings, smiling, proud. I didn't realize until I saw it how public my name had become. And I didn't realize until the next morning how visible that made me. When Mom called again, voice shaking, half pride, half panic. "Clara," she whispered, "everyone's talking about you. You're everywhere." I smiled softly. "Guess you were wrong, Mom." She hesitated. "About what?" "About the kind of person who owns things." Mom didn't know what to say after that. For once, she didn't have a comeback. No gentle insult, no patronizing advice. Just silence. Then she sighed softly. "Clara, we didn't mean to make you feel less than your brother. We just thought he needed more help." I leaned against the balcony railing, staring out at the city. "You didn't give him help, Mom. You gave him excuses." She went quiet again. I could hear dishes clinking in the background, like she was trying to fill the silence with anything but the truth. Finally, she said, "Your father's upset. He feels like you're showing off." I smiled faintly. I worked half my life for the right to show up. If that looks like showing off, maybe you were never looking close enough. Her voice trembled. "You've really changed." "No," I said gently. "I finally became who I was supposed to be." After the call ended, I sat down at my desk, opened my email, and read through dozens of messages, applications from women hoping for a chance at the new housing grant. Teachers, nurses, single moms, women who'd been told, "You're not the type, just like me." Each story made me realize something deeper. I hadn't built a real estate empire just to prove a point to my family. I'd built it for people like us, those who'd been underestimated into silence. That evening, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Dad. "Your mother and I saw the article. We're proud of you, Clara. Truly. But I wish you told us first." For once, his tone wasn't condescending. It was human. I typed slowly. "I tried telling you for 29 years, Dad. You just weren't listening." Then I turned my phone off. The world outside glittered, thousands of lights, each one a reminder that sometimes you have to outshine the people who told you to stay small. And the best part? You don't owe them an explanation when you finally glow. 2 weeks later, the inevitable happened. Mom invited me to a small family dinner to talk things out. The same house, the same table, the same people who once told me renting was my speed. I almost said no, but then I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. When I arrived, the atmosphere was painfully polite, like everyone was afraid to breathe wrong. Ethan avoided my eyes, stirring his wine with unnecessary focus. Dad sat stiffly, his expression trying to balance pride and discomfort. Mom fussed with the napkins like they were the key to peace. "Clara," she began carefully, "we all made mistakes. Let's start fresh." "Sure," I said calmly. "But let's start honestly." Ethan groaned. "Not this again." I turned to him. "Don't worry, I'm not here to embarrass you. Just to thank you." He blinked. "Thank me?" "Yes," I said, leaning forward. "Because if you hadn't taken everything I ever wanted, the support, the chances, the praise, I might have grown up believing comfort was enough. You taught me to earn everything. So, thank you." For once, he had no comeback. Dad cleared his throat. "Clara, you've proven yourself. You've made us proud. But you have to understand, parents do their best with what they know." I nodded slowly. And children grow from what they survive. The table went silent. Mom's eyes welled up, but she smiled weakly. "Maybe we can still have you home for Christmas?" I thought about the word home. How it once meant walls that never echoed my name. How now it meant peace, wherever I created it. I smiled gently. "Maybe. But I'll bring my own table this time." They all looked confused, but I didn't explain. When I left that night, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished. Because closure isn't a door slam. It's a soft click, the sound of your heart finally locking what no longer deserves entry. And in that silence, I realized they'd built my limits, but I'd built my legacy. A few months later, my life had settled into a rhythm that finally felt like mine. The business was thriving, the grant program was expanding, and my morning started with peace instead of permission. One afternoon, I got an email from a real estate magazine requesting an interview. "We'd love to feature your journey, from being overlooked to owning a multi-million-dollar portfolio." I agreed, but only on one condition: the focus had to be on resilience, not riches. The article went viral within a week. The headline read, "From Rejection to Real Estate Empire. The Woman Who Bought Her Freedom, One Property at a Time." Comments poured in. Thousands of women wrote about being told the same thing: "You're not the type." And for the first time, my story wasn't about envy or revenge. It was a mirror for every underdog who'd ever been underestimated. A few days later, Mom called again. Her voice was soft, not the brittle tone of guilt, just quiet understanding. "I read your interview," she said. "I didn't know how much you went through alone." "You didn't want to know," I replied gently.
She sighed.
"You're right. But I'm proud of you now, Clara."
Truly.
"I just wish we hadn't made you prove it first." That sentence, imperfect, fragile, real, was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get. And somehow it was enough. That weekend, I visited them again. No arguments. No comparisons. Just conversation. Ethan was there too, quieter, humbler. He handed me a small box. Inside was a keychain, a tiny silver house. He smiled awkwardly. "Figured it was about time I congratulated you properly." For the first time in years, I smiled back, not with triumph, but with peace. "Thanks, Ethan." As I drove home that night, city lights stretched across the skyline like a map of every no that turned into a victory. And when I parked outside my newest property, I whispered to myself, "You weren't the type who owned